everyone, and welcome back to the PREVNet podcast. This is the show where we get to talk about all things that promote healthier youth relationships. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm joining you from Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Stoney Nakoda Nations, and Tsuut'ina Nation, and homeland of the Otipemisiwak Métis Nation of Alberta's Nose Hill Métis District 5 and Elbow Métis District 6. Today, I'm super excited because we're talking about youth engagement. We talk a lot on this podcast about innovative programs and curriculums to promote healthier youth relationships and prevent interpersonal violence. But we know that you can have the most thorough and evidence-based curriculum out there, and unless you can find a way to make it fun, accessible, and relevant to the needs and experiences of the youth you're working with, it won't go far. That's why we brought in our guest, Pénélope Allard-Cobetto, a researcher and coordinator with the Étincelles or SPARX program, to share learnings from some hot off-the-press research they've recently published, which goes straight to the source, featuring youth perspectives on their experience with the program. This is such a cool opportunity to learn about some exciting research and programming that's emerging out of Quebec, and I'm so stoked to dive in. So, Pénélope, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We've talked before about how there's sort of this disconnect between research that's happening in Quebec and some of the Western provinces. So this is such a cool opportunity to sort of bridge that gap. So thanks again so much. I'm wondering if you could just help our audience get to know you a bit and take a minute to introduce yourself and your background in gender-based violence prevention research.
Of course. So my name is Pénélope Allard-Cobetto. I completed a bachelor's degree in criminology and a master's degree in sexology. I started my career working with victims of intimate partner violence and family violence. And then since completing my master's thesis on the prevention of sexual violence in minors, I've been working as a research professional for the Canada Research Chair on Interpersonal Traumas and Resilience, where I coordinate the SPARX project. So in that role, I work with teenagers, parents, and professionals to identify the best ways to promote healthy relationships and prevent dating violence among youth. So that includes meeting with those populations, talking about their needs, developing tools based on them, offering initiatives, and collecting their feedback to make improvements.
Great. Thank you so much. And the SPARX program it's an amazing program. Can you tell us a little bit about the background of the program and the population of youth that you're working with?
Yeah, of course. So the SPARX program was developed following the Youth Romantic Relationship Survey, which was carried out in Quebec with over 8,000 participants. So in that study, 63% of girls and 49% of boys reported at least one episode of dating violence in the past year. So that motivated Martine Hébert, the main researcher, to develop a prevention initiative. And so the SPARX program was created in 2019 thanks to a grant by the Public Health Agency of Canada and aims to promote positive relationships and prevent dating violence among youth. So it's a multi-component program with the socio-ecological view. And so we have a parental component, which includes informative and modeling videos, as well as a support guide for caregivers to better equip them to discuss positive relationships and violence with their youth. We also have a component for professionals and school staff, which includes online trainings to raise awareness about this subject, allow them to answer teenagers' questions, respond to disclosures, and facilitate workshops. And finally, we have a youth component, so that includes 6 workshops for teenagers that talk about positive relationships, communication, conflict management, breakups, and dating violence. And finally, we also have a peer-facilitated component called Youth Ambassadors, which is a youth-led committee facilitating activities by and for youth. So those activities can really take place in high schools, but also in community organizations, youth centers, so really any setting with adolescents. And most of our tools are available for free in French and in English and detailed on our website.
Thank you. Yeah, it really strikes me hearing you talk about it. What a multi-pronged approach you guys are taking, really addressing dating violence from every direction, working with parents, working with staff who work with youth, and working with the youth themselves. So thank you for sharing that. And today we'll talk about a paper that you are the first author on. And the title in English is called Exploring Young People's Opinions About Sexuality Education Workshops Offered by the SPARX program. So in that paper, you note that while there are a lot of programs aimed at promoting healthier youth relationships, very few are actually incorporating youth perspectives into their evaluations, which I found really interesting. I'm wondering if you have any ideas why you think that might be.
Well, I think the teenage population can be really hard to recruit because you really have to meet them where they are. So you need to really take time to get into the spaces where they spend their time and also make the process interesting for them, which needs some research and really like intentional actions to make it happen. Otherwise, they won't necessarily feel inclined to participate in your research, but it does take some resources to do.
And I'm wondering why it was important for your team to actually talk with the youth involved in the program and get their perspectives.
It was really crucial for us to get their perspectives, not only because they're not often consulted, but also because our whole program is built on an intervention mapping model. So we developed each component following a needs assessment. For caregivers and professionals, it was online questionnaires. And for youth, we analyzed 400 help demands to Tel Jeune, a helpline in Quebec, to identify themes that matter to youth and raise questions. And so after developing those workshops, we wanted to make sure that what we created really was answering their needs and concerns. So we wanted to do that with more than just a questionnaire. We wanted to go deeper into their perspectives. So what was most appreciated? What could be improved and how? What are some blind spots we maybe have, things we could have overlooked because we're not teenagers anymore? And I think it's crucial that more initiatives ask those questions because while we can do everything according to research and best practices, we need to make sure that the people we aim to reach actually benefit from our programs and they're in the best position to tell us about that.
That's such a great point. Right now, in my work with PREVNet, I'm working with a youth advisory council, and during one of our discussions recently, it really struck me that while it doesn't, I'm at the age where it doesn't feel like I was a youth that long ago. We're living in a totally different reality with technology and smartphones and things like that than young people are today. So
Definitely.
it's great that you're taking the time to connect with youth in that way and understand more about what it's like to be a youth now and the implications for your programming with that as well. Um, if we can dive into the research a little bit, you used qualitative methods for this study. And so I'm wondering if you could explain what that looked like and sort of how you made sense of the data that you were collecting.
Of course. So, very briefly, we went to four high schools which had implemented our workshops during the 2020-2021 school year, meaning that all grade 9 students had received the workshops 1, 2, and 3, and all grade 10 students had received the workshops 4, 5, and 6. So, we went over during their lunch break and we invited the students who were interested in participating in a group interview to come to a classroom, eat some pizza with us while we explained the consent forms, got them completed, and then we interviewed them as a group for around 45 minutes. We followed a group interview template which addressed three main themes. So the first one was the teenagers' appreciation of the workshops, including the relevance of the topics, activities, examples, the facilitators, the classroom climate as well. The second one was the factors that motivated or discouraged their participation. And the third one was the recommendations to improve the program. So we recorded all interviews and then we transcribed them. And once that was done, we did a thematic analysis to identify recurring patterns, meaning that similar points were organized into main themes and subcategories that reflected the participants' experiences.
That's great. And through that process, can you share with us just a little bit about what you found was working about the program or what resonated about it with youth?
Yeah, definitely. So the feedback we got from the youth can be divided into four takeaways. So first, that learning through play with dynamic and team activities was a good way to really integrate the information and remember it. So the fact that the SPARX workshops were different from the classes they were used to really helped them stay engaged. They liked to move around, to talk, exchange ideas, to give their opinions, to participate in games, etc. The second thing was that our examples and case scenarios were accurate to their reality, and that this is a crucial thing for youth. So they really need to identify with the teenagers in the situations for the messages to be taken seriously. They need to feel like realistic situations they could have heard about or seen friends in. The third thing would be that they liked to be encouraged to think deeply about their own needs and feelings and experiences and really having the time to reflect. They also liked the activities that put them in a position to think about how they would behave in a concrete way. So, for example, presenting a case scenario and then saying, how would you respond? What would you do in that situation? So, really putting them into action. And finally, that they really need safe spaces for expression. For example, small team activities to discuss, because teenagers often fear being judged by the rest of their class.
That's really interesting. Um, to your point about not just learning the information, but being encouraged to sort of try it on in different scenarios. Um, I think that's a theme that's come up in multiple other interviews that we've done on this podcast, creative ways that people are helping the populations that they're working with who are engaging with their curriculums actually practice the skills that they're learning. And related to that, in the paper, one thing that you spoke about that I thought was really interesting was how personal testimonials and stories from youth with lived expertise seemed to really resonate with the youth. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so in our workshop number 4, to explain the different forms of dating violence, we took real help demands received by the helpline Telgen, and we asked young actors to read those testimonies on videos. So in class, in the workshops, we show the videos to youth, and we ask them different questions, such as what are some qualities needed in a healthy relationship that are not respected here? So, of course, we tell them that the testimonies are real situations reported by teenagers their age, but that the people in the videos are actors. And then in the group discussions, when we did the evaluation, teenagers said that this workshop was taken a lot more seriously because they knew they were real life situations that could happen and had happened to people their age. So it really seemed to make an impression on them and help them understand dating violence in a concrete way.
That's so interesting. And recently I was in a workshop about storytelling and what a powerful tool storytelling can be. And it really got me thinking because in our work with PREVNet, I was thinking about ways that we could sort of incorporate more storytelling. But it's such a challenging thing to do sometimes when you're talking about being trauma informed and sharing people's personal stories in the right way. And so I'm really interested to learn more about how your team's managing that dynamic with the SPARX program.
Definitely. So, first, about the young people who actually shared their stories, those requests for help were made to Telgen around 2018. All identifying information was removed, all names that could have been used were changed to fictitious names, obviously. But we also made sure to keep situations that could apply to a large number of teenagers, so experiences that were short, not too graphic or detailed. And then it was a few years before they began being used with a small number of youth in workshops. And as of today, when the program is more widely delivered, it's been more than 7 years since those requests for help were made. Other than that, since our workshops with youth talk about sensitive topics in general, such as dating violence, our facilitators always make sure to clearly identify at the beginning the locations of psychosocial workers on site. So we specify that we will address sensitive topics and that any student can leave the room at any time if they're uncomfortable. We also put up a list of resources in the room, including helplines, and we make it clear that we'll remain in the room after the workshop is done in case anyone needs to talk. Then, before presenting the videos, as I've said earlier, we explain to the teenagers that the testimonies are real, but that they are read on video by actors for reenactment. So that keeps the seriousness of the statements without the emotional weight of being in front of a victim recounting their own experience.
That's great that this particular aspect seemed to really resonate with the youth because I think it really hammers home the point that like young people want to hear from other young people. They don't want to hear a bunch of old people creating like ethnographic vignettes of experiences for them to read and digest. They want to hear from other people their age. So that's very cool.
Definitely. And I think they kind of like have a tendency that when they hear adults talk, they kind of have an idea of like, oh, they're making it like way bigger than it needs to be. Like, okay, they're making this such a big deal, but actually hearing like young people have dealt with this and it was an actual like real help demand that was made to tel jeune, I think that really hits home for them.
Hmm. Um, now, if we could chat about barriers that you identified as well a little bit. In the paper, you talked about how one barrier that the youth reported was feeling self conscious or afraid of judgment from their peers, which is probably unsurprising to a lot of people listening. You mentioned that this suggests the need for opportunities for youth to participate in sexuality and teen dating violence prevention programming anonymously. And so that piqued my curiosity about what this could look like and how the SPARX program might incorporate this feedback into its programming, either right away or in future iterations of the program. Yeah, any ideas you had around that?
Well, in recent years, I've really seen growing initiatives about dating violence that happen online. So I'm thinking about the helpline SOS Domestic Violence and their online campaign with interactive situations on their website that illustrate different types of dating violence. Or the Child Advocacy Center Marie Vincent has a game online called Delicate Spots to prevent sexual violence in teenagers. So really, I think the possibilities are really endless and they should be more promoted to teens. But more specifically, in the case of the SPARX program, we still deliver the workshops in person, but we integrated the use of Q&A boxes or online links where teenagers can ask their questions or subjects they want to talk about anonymously. We were really interested in integrating the use of online interactive platforms like Mentimeter or Kahoot for moments where we usually ask questions to the class in general. But cell phone management in schools, especially in Quebec, is very strict right now. So honestly, it's something we're still figuring out. But a physical box or a Google form permitting youth to suggest things really is a first step.
That's so interesting. The cell phone piece as well. I was just talking to a parent of school age youth who were like, yeah, they need their cell phones in school because they do activities on them, but they put them in like a little cell phone envelope every day and they're only allowed to take them out at specific times.
That could be a strategy. Or I know there's also some schools that have like iPads or like computers. So that could be used. But then again, it's not like every school, depends on funding and stuff. So yeah, it's something to be explored for sure.
Yeah, it could be such a powerful engagement tool, but obviously there's all the drawbacks of having too many screens in the classroom and all that. Um, reflecting on all of the learnings from this amazing work, what do you think are some of the implications for caring adults who work with youth? I'm thinking there's probably a lot of people in this audience who are wondering what they can learn from this work about ways that they can engage youth in conversations that promote healthier relationships more effectively.
That's a really great question. I think first we need to prioritize activities that encourage young people to reflect on their own reality, including their needs, likes, dislikes, values, but also their behavior and how they would act in different situations that they maybe never thought of. I think it's a great way to ensure that they're more prepared to react in difficult situations if they come up. And if possible, doing that by making them move or play rather than simply delivering information in a lecture style format as they're used to in schools. For examples, in one of our workshops, we use a board game we created, and teenagers play in small teams, and they're faced with scenarios where they must say what they would do in a specific situation. We've seen that teenagers really love this activity, and usually they want to keep playing when the class is over because there's this sense of being proactive, thinking about their behaviors and what they would do. But all of this takes place in a game where they're free to talk with their peers and have fun. We have another activity where we ask them to get up and move around the classroom to report their level of agreement with different sentences, such as, for example, it's important for me to have access to my partner's phone password. So once again, they love that they can get up and move, but they also love expressing and debating their own points of view. So really, I think the way to engage youth more effectively is to make initiatives fun and focused on their reality and perspectives, like to really give them a space to express themselves and then to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, that's totally resonates with my experiences and also what I'd imagine. It's like on the one hand, it's not rocket science that youth don't want to sit down and just be lectured to, but it's really cool to learn about the creative ways that you're actually like gamifying the process, for example, and making it a more social and fun and because these are tough topics, so it's really cool to see that you're able to approach it from in a way that makes it not only accessible but also fun and engaging for the youth. So great work on that.
Thank you so much. And yeah, it's something that came up in the article. One of the youth said that she thinks it's a really sensitive topics, and the way that we use play to like convey the different messages, the person said that it really helped ease how much this subject is like weighted down and hard to discuss. So that was something we really appreciated to hear from the youth.
Yeah, like they're heavy topics, but not everything needs to be so heavy. And it's probably not the healthiest thing for it to feel super heavy all the time. So
Exactly.
it sounds like you're navigating that really effectively. And so, on that note, I'm sure we've piqued a lot of people's interests, learning more about the program and some of the really cool learnings from your qualitative research and evaluation. And so, I'm wondering where we can learn more about SPARX and more about your team's amazing work.
Thank you. Well, most of our tools are available in French and in English for free on our website, so étincelles.ucam.ca. That includes the modeling videos, the support guide for parents, the online trainings for professionals, and also a lot of information and interactive activities for youth and parents. Other than that, you can also follow us at sparks_project on Instagram and Facebook, as well as on LinkedIn. We're currently conducting a social media campaign to raise awareness about positive relationships and dating balance.
That's so fantastic. And I'll make sure that all of that is linked in the description of this video. And just a note to listeners, if you didn't catch at the beginning, the program is offered in French and English. So the site, the link that's provided in the description is specifically to the English description of the program and the resources. So thank you so much, Pénélope, for joining us today. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience before we sign off?
I don't think so, but I thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This broadcast was brought to you by the Promoting Relationships and Eliminating Violence Network, also known as PREVNet. PREVNet is a national not-for-profit organization dedicated to preventing youth interpersonal violence. PREVNet collaborates with communities, organizations, educators, researchers, and youth to create and share learning resources that address bullying and teen dating violence across Canada. For more information about how you can get involved in eliminating violence and promoting